There was a businessman who was on vacation in a small coastal town, and he noticed there's a fisherman coming in on a smallish kind of boat with a few fish, and there was something about that it intrigued him. So he waited for the fisherman to come all the way in, and he said, is this what you caught today? And the fisherman said, yeah, this is what I caught. And he said, how long did it take you to get these fish? He said, oh, not long. And then the businessman said, why didn't you stay out longer and get more fish? And the fisherman said, this is all the fish my family and I need, so I came home. And the businessman said, what are you doing with the rest of your time? And the fisherman says, well, let's see, I sleep late, I get up, go fishing, come home, play with the kids, take a nap with my wife, and in the evening I go to town to have a beer or wine and play the guitar with my friends. And the businessman said, well, I have an MBA from Harvard. Harvard. And you know, if you stay out longer, you can fish more fish, and then you sell for profit, and then in a couple of years you can buy a bigger boat, and then you can do that for a couple more years, and then you can add more boats to it, have other people go out fishing for you, and before long you're going to have a fleet of boats, and then you can cut out the middlemen and you can sell to the factory, the cannery directly, and then you do that for a little while, and then you can offer your company in a public offering on the stock market, and you can get millions. Oh, said the fisherman, millions. And what then? Well, then you can retire. And what then, says the fisherman? Well, then you can move to a small fishing town, go out in the morning, fish a little, go home, play with your grandkids, take a nap with your wife, and in the evening, go and have a glass of wine with your friends and play the guitar. And the fisherman said, I'm already doing that. And so the businessman walked away, not pitying the fisherman anymore, but with a surprising amount of envy. That is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about this idea that there is enough. There's enough in this moment, in what we have done, in what we are, in who we are. Enough love, enough relationship, enough beingness. Now, why are we even talking about this? I invite you to close your eyes and think about the last time where you had a moment that felt that you had enough. Enough of everything. There wasn't anything you desired more than that moment. Now, for some of us, that might be recent. And for others, it might be a realization that this feeling of enoughness, which I found out is not a word. Did you know that? Enoughness shows up in no dictionary. Not yet. I think it should be a word. This idea of sufficiency, this idea of feeling, there it is. I have done enough. You know that most of the time, and that's what this slide shows us, most of the time we are feeling that feeling of enough from some outside source, right? Our inbox is completely empty. Yeah. No. Or our boss says, you know, you've done enough. Or it's a certain time of the day where we finally feel like we have done enough and we can put everything down. Or it is a number in a checking account or a savings account. But all of those stimuli comes from the outside. And so the question then becomes, where did we lose in our individual lives this sense of enoughness? I like to think about it as a thermostat. We all are familiar with a thermostat, right? You set a certain amount of temperature, and when the room reaches that temperature, the heater turns off. Or here in Arizona, you know, the other way around with the air conditioning. However, it feels, and a lot of people are reporting, that that internal thermos has been broken. And so we keep on going on. This feeling tone of there's just never enough. I just watched my favorite movie, Ever After, and there's a scene where Angelica Houston, I think is her name, says, after all that I did, after all that I have done, it's never enough. Right? Do you feel that sometimes? Whatever we're doing, we're hustling for and really working on getting this thing done, and that moment to celebrate sufficiency is just not there. I think we have a quote from Gerald May who says this: "The choices we make, and therefore the way we feel about ourselves, are determined less by what we long for and more by what is controllable and acceptable to the world around us. After enough of this, we lose our passion and we forget who we are." We forget who we are. We forget that we are beings of light that are innately enough. If we need a little reminder, hang out with a 2 or 3-year-old. They don't have that feeling, right? They just go, and there's not a question of, is there enough? Is there enough play? Is there enough time to do whatever? They're just fully in the moment. And yet, for so many of us, we have lost that feeling tone, that knowingness. I've done enough. It is my time to stop, to rest. And so we have a slide that shows this idea of generating this sense of enoughness actually from within. How would that look? How would that look? What have we done? What have I done this last week to set myself up to feel a moment of enoughness? Last week, Reverend Leslie gave a great talk on celebrating change. You might remember, she talked about those 3 points of how we can help ourselves to move through all this change that is happening in the world. The first one was, feel all your feelings. just really feel all your feelings. And I know that has happened because we got a lot of calls from individuals who were doing exactly that and felt like they would benefit from working with a practitioner, working with a minister, coming to New Vision Center to work on the big feelings that have been around. And then she talked about how it is important then to really dig deep in and believe what our truth is. And then the third point she made was use the tools. And so here's just a little check-in. If you think about it, how did you use the tools that Science of Mind is teaching, meditation and prayer, affirmative prayer, and mindfulness, and journaling, and all of the different modalities that we teach here? Did you use them to help yourself feel that feeling of who I am, what I do, what I give, who I be is enough? I love that she sent us off with the charge to reveal the power of love last week. And even in that, if we don't cultivate this feeling inside of this thermos to set it at a certain place, that it tells us it's enough. Even when we are revealing the power of love, giving to those who are in need, visiting those who are going through a hard time, if it doesn't shut off, we are left with having nothing more to give. And so I asked myself, well, how can I support myself? How can I support this community? What can I offer to help us feel sufficiency? And I came across a book by Wayne Muller, who wrote this wonderful book, Living a Life of Having, Being, and Doing Enough. And in there, he talks about every time when we approach something new. This might be a new relationship. It might be an invitation to something that looks like fun. With the holidays coming up, a lot of those invitations are coming up. Or perhaps it is going into a business meeting or taking on one more thing. Here are the questions that he invites us to ask before we go there. Am I truly able to say that I really love this? Or is it more honest to say that I can handle this? Where are my handlers? We can handle things, right? Bring it on. Bring it on. I can handle it. Asking, being willing to ask ourselves, would I really love to do this? It will give us an answer. It doesn't necessarily translate immediately into, oh, don't do that anymore. It could. But more importantly, what it does when we develop a habit, when we develop a practice to ask ourselves, is this going to light me up? Will I love to do this? Or is it more honest to say, oh, I can handle that? When we get into the habit of doing it, pretty soon what we are going to experience is that inner thermostat, that inner place that signals to us, you're done. It is complete. That relationship with that part within us gets stronger and stronger. Good in theory? Let's try it out. I invite you to close your eyes if that's comfortable, or just soften your gaze and think about just something that somebody brought to you. An invitation, a new relationship, a new job, something. And ask yourself that question. Can I honestly say, I would love to engage with this. I would love to do this. Or is it more honest to say, I could handle it. I could make space for it. Notice that if we give ourselves the time to figure out what is my next right thing to do, the quality of that relationship becomes more honest. The quality of that interaction has more beauty, more authenticity in it. And I invite you to come back. If we engage in those simple questions, over time, it will give us reliable data of what our heart really wants, of where we are drawn. Because it's coming from within. And the other thing that's going to happen, it's going to eliminate some of the chatter in our minds. You know the chatter? Oh, I should have said no to that. Oh, let's see, I could call, I could cancel, I could give them some excuse, or any of those things. Do you know what I'm talking about? The more we develop the relationship with our inner thermostat, I always forget the last part of that word, thermostat. The more we develop a relationship with it, the easier it becomes to say, no, I am really complete with work for this week. I'll pick it up next week, if that works for you. We are bombarded, each and every one of us, bombarded with invitations, demands, things to do. That it often takes a while to simply appreciate when there's complete silence. Allowing us to feel the quality of this moment. Perhaps noticing this desire to rush in, to fill up the space. We often see it in conversations. Have you ever noticed that? That sometimes we are in conversations and it's a moment for one person to take a breath and a couple other people are ready to jump in. Spaciousness. Practicing being comfortable with a moment filled with silence. Our inner thermostat has its own pace. And unless we give it some space to make itself known, we're going to miss the little ding. Pace. I love what Ralph Waldo Emerson says about pace. He says, adopt the pace of nature. Her secret is patience. Her secret is patience. I think that's something that the tortoise would agree with, right? The tortoise who made her way and ultimately won. I don't know about you, but in my life, things are speeding up so much that I am yearning to develop this patience and this pace that Emerson is talking about. And so I came up with a couple reminders for pace. The first one is pause. Let's just take a pause. An intentional break. A moment for us to breathe, to reflect, to listen. So the P stands for pause. The A is for centering ourselves and aligning ourselves with our values. As we do this wonderful work of discovering who we are and how we want to walk out this spiritual path, and as we become so familiar with our values, unless we take a breath and give it some time, those values have a little harder time to shine through when we are in conversation, in a business meeting, on the freeway, wherever. So, before we enter into anything new, maybe we can remind ourselves of this pace. Pause, align, and the C stands for calm. Cultivate an inner calm by eliminating much of the justification of why we're doing this. When we come to a place where we are so clear, this is who I am, this is what I stand for, this is what I'm willing to do, and this is where I am drawing a line and where I say, enough. When we're so clear of who we are, the chatter falls away. It just falls away. And we actually have the place and the space, the spaciousness to breathe in and be. And then the E stands for embrace. Embrace moments of stillness, of rest, which are essential for our well-being. And so the invitation this week is really to recalibrate our relationship with our inner thermostat. Perhaps for some of us, this is a brand new question. Is there a place within me that I feel so connected to and know so clearly this moment of sufficiency, this moment of just wanting to celebrate the love and the beauty and the goodness and the enoughness that is there? And then reminding ourselves of those two questions. Whenever we start something new, whenever we engage in a new thing, do I really love this? Or is it more accurate and honest to say, I can handle it? I can handle it. We are in charge of our own lives. That's what we teach here. That is what the science of mind is all about. It is an empowerment. It's science and philosophy and faith that shows us our empowerment. Those two questions can really help. And then the third and last invitation is to find your individual spiritual practice, your individual mantra, your affirmation of how it feels for you to be enough. How do I know? How can I cultivate that? And if you don't know the answer to that, which is perfectly fine, find people who you experience as them living from the inside out, living from a place of inner calmness that provides a spaciousness for you to breathe in their presence. And then talk to them. Ask them, would you be willing for us to have a conversation? I'm interested in developing something new. The New Vision Center is such a fertile ground for that. Our incredible practitioners that we have here that serve exactly in that capacity. So excited about all of the things that are going on in this near future. Before you sign up for anything, I really invite you to take a moment and ask yourself those two questions. Would I love to do this? Would I love to be engaged with this? Or is it more honest to say, I can handle it? And what I know, that if we all honestly answer those questions, we are going to be more often at the right place, in the right time, engaged in exactly the right activities. And that, beloveds, I want for all of us. Develop the awareness of your inner thermostat. And a great way to do that is through our affirmative prayer. So let's close our eyes now. Take all of this goodness, all of these words, and feel into how you heard them. What does this mean for me? And so from this place, I know that the allness of life is right here in this now moment. All the love, all the peace, all the joy, all the possibilities. And as I consciously step into this awareness, this knowingness that I am one in the one, I know that that is the truth of myself, and I know that that is the truth of every beloved within the sound of my voice. Every beloved who has ever heard about this place, every beloved who is present here, and every beloved who will ever hear about this. For this is the truth. There's only one. And from this place, I just honor this now moment, recognizing it is enough. It is all that we really have. And so I notice the texture of this moment, the love that is present. I recognize the blessing in it. And I recognize that there's nothing more to do. Simply placing this word into the universal law, letting it be, and together we know this truth as we say, and so it is.